The side of, I don't know how many people are on. Oop, how many people are on the Zoom? Is it just like can see?
Yeah.
Just wondering. Okay, cool.
It'll be recorded, so you can just start whenever.
Okay, for sure. All right. So let's get started. All right, hello, everyone. My name is Ian, and today I'm going to be talking to you about passwords. Now, passwords are something everyone is familiar with. We use them every day. Unfortunately, many people have password practices and habits that aren't very secure and leave them vulnerable to possible attacks. So we're going to be looking at three main points. Why it's important to have good passwords, some basic steps to build a good password, and the importance of password managers. And we'll be playing the role of password mythbusters, debunking some common password myths along the way. All right, now, to start off, why does this matter? Many people have the mindset of, oh, well, I'll never be targeted for an attack. I don't hold anything valuable. One of the most important things to remember, and something a lot of people don't consider, is that everyone has something valuable. And I'm not just talking about your bank account. As an example, I work as a junior web developer on a small web dev team, so I'm pretty low down on the corporate ladder, but I still have access to a lot of the back end for the websites that our team maintains. If an attacker wanted to target my company and they were able to get into my account, they could still do some pretty significant damage to those websites. However, it's not just your professional accounts that are at risk. A good example of this is phishing, where attackers will break into your social media account and use it to send phishing scams to other people. Now, you might be wondering how an attacker would even gain access to your passwords. Well, one of the most common methods is known as credential stuffing. The way this works is that an attacker can breach a website's database if the company has poor security and steal the list of hashed credentials for its users. It can then use a hash cracking tool like Hashcat to decrypt those passwords. And if you don't have a secure password, break into your account. One instance of this was the LinkedIn data breach that happened in 2012. In June of that year, LinkedIn was targeted by Russian hackers who stole the passwords of 6.5 million LinkedIn accounts. And LinkedIn responded by resetting the passwords of those accounts. However, in 2016, it was discovered that nearly 165 million LinkedIn emails and passwords were stolen in that data breach when this data was posted on the dark web for sale. It was suspected that these passwords were likely easy to unscramble because at the time, LinkedIn was not using a salt in their password hashing. And for those who don't know, a salt is just a random string of data that is added onto a password before it's fed into a hashing function. Which largely renders attacks like credential stuffing useless as it increases the characters in a password needed to be tested in the decryption process and removes the possibility of repeat passwords between different accounts. Another famous data breach that happened back in 2013 was the Adobe hack, when hackers stole info for over 150 million accounts, which included usernames and hash passwords, as well as IDs and credit card records. It just goes to show that you never know what websites can put your information at risk. So it's important to have passwords that are significantly harder to decrypt to mitigate that risk. All right. Now let's go on. Now that we've discussed why it's important to have good passwords, let's look at the steps to actually make a good password. And there are a couple of ways to do this. But first, let's get to our second myth. You may have heard that you should regularly change your passwords. This is really only true for companies and organizations. They do this so that if someone gets fired or moves on from a particular job, they won't still be able to get into those accounts that they had access to. It's not really something that's necessary for your own personal passwords, especially since it makes your credentials harder to remember if you're constantly changing them. All right, now for some tips. First and foremost, don't reuse your passwords. This is one of the worst things you can do because if an attacker gets access to just one of your accounts, they now have access to all of those other accounts that you use that password. Now, common practice for a good password is that it should be at least 12 characters and have a combination of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. Misspelling words is a great way to increase security. And in addition, your password should not include any personal data. Now let's put this into practice. So we look at some of these passwords. We can kind of incrementally increase the security of these. Now, password one is one of the most common password. This can be cracked in milliseconds. It's very, very easy to crack this password. And if we add just two special characters, we add an exclamation point on the end of it. This increases this time to 3 hours. If we can misspell one of the words, as we mentioned in the tips, this increases the cracking time to 6 days. Going further, we can add a couple of other characters and some capital letters. This first my password increases the cracking time to 14 years. And if we make a couple of other changes, we add two other special characters and some more numbers. This increases the time to centuries.
Is this in terms of like brute force?
Yeah, it's a brute force, yeah. Now, those are very good passwords, but if you're worried about remembering that password, there's an alternative way to do this. It's really easy, which is to use a passphrase. Now, some of you may have seen this XKCD comic. A passphrase is simply a combination of 4 different random words stuck together, like clown-faced rodent tail or correct horse battery staple, as you see in the comic. The longer the words, the stronger the password. And it would be really easy to make the password from the comic even more secure by adding a few numbers and special characters. So now you have a password that's easy to remember and very hard to crack. So yeah, get creative with your passwords. This might just be the security nerd in me, but you can have a lot of fun coming up with unique and personal passwords that are secure and easy for you to remember. As a final piece of advice, you should be using two-factor authentication whenever possible, especially for your sensitive accounts. For those who don't know, 2FA is just a form of authentication. It's a second form of authentication required to log into accounts. Duo is an example of this. So whenever you log into your CPP account, you have to select confirm on the notification on your phone. That's a form of 2FA. Many websites will have this option, and it's best to use the one-time code that you can put into a two-factor app like Duo, or you can get the codes. You can get the codes texted to your phone number, but there are some methods out there that make this pretty easy to intercept. There are a ton of different apps you can use for 2FA. Authy is another example that comes to mind. All right, now we know how to make good, secure, and memorable passwords. But I couldn't possibly remember a unique password for all of my online accounts. Well, you're right. I know I could never remember passwords for all of the online accounts that I use. This is why I highly recommend using a password manager. Password manager solves this issue by allowing you to create a unique, totally random password for all of your online accounts that you never have to remember. This brings us to our final myth. You say, but isn't it bad to have bad security to have all my passwords in one place? And there's a caveat to this answer. No, it is not bad security as long as you have a strong, secure password to your password manager. Benefit of this is that it dramatically reduces the number of passwords that you have to memorize. And as such, you can make them longer and more complex. I only have to remember 3 passwords: my phone password, my computer password, and the password for my password manager. All of my other passwords are completely random, super long passwords that I will never have to remember because they're all saved in my password manager. Now, there are a dozen different password managers out there, and you can feel free to do your own research and compare them to see what works best for you. As for what I would recommend, I always suggest Bitwarden, as they have a free version that gives you unlimited passwords, and they have a desktop and a mobile app. I put the QR code to their website up on the screen for you to scan if you would like. Now let's recap what we discussed today. We went over the importance of passwords, how to talk about how everyone has something valuable to an attacker, and you never know what websites could put you at risk. Talk about the benefits of passphrases when combined, especially when combined with special and numeric characters, which are the best way to make a secure and memorable password. We talked about the importance of using two-factor authentication, which is a very important way to increase security, especially on your sensitive accounts, and the importance of using a password manager to help you create longer, more complex passwords for your accounts that you don't necessarily have to remember. And so,
Any question?
questions from the Zoom or the chat?
You know, any other tools other than Bitwarden?
I mean, yeah, I personally use 1Password. I really like them. They have one of their features that I really like is they have a shortcut that is like basically a quick access to all of your passwords. But they are a paid like subscription service. So Bitwarden is one of the best like options that I've come across that's like, like reliable and free. But I mean, there's a ton. There's like there's like LastPass, there's like NordPass, there's a bunch of them out there. So, if you want to sort of do your own research on what password manager is like the best for you, you just kind of Google that and figure out what's best.
What happens if your password gets stolen?
For in like your password manager or
Any password, what do you do?
well, if your password gets stolen, and when you know that your password gets stolen, you should definitely reset that password to secure those accounts. That's why one of the things, if you've ever gotten those emails where a service asks you to reset your password, you should always do that immediately because that likely means that there was a breach and your account is at risk. So yeah, just if your account's been compromised, just change your password. If it's like a bank account, maybe like keep an eye on your like credit card transactions for the next like month or so. Just to make sure there's no like funny business. And if there is, then you would just talk to your bank about it.
Yeah. I guess if there's nothing else, we can pretty much wrap it up. Round of applause for Ian. All right.